bring our people together. First of all, to change the software of our minds, not believing that I'm Tanzanian and you're Kenyan, but before that, believing that, hey, I'm African. And when you talk about Africa, not only 54 countries inside the map of Africa, but here in Swahili Nation, we always say we have 56 countries. We have 56 children, 54 countries inside the inside the continent, and also that one is African descendants all across the world. This is the journey to One Africa.
África. E sem mais delongas, without further ado, with everybody, Mr. Mika Chavala.
Hey, everybody. It's good to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. And I'm very excited for this conversation.
Habari Mika, asante sana na karibu.
Asante sana. Naendelea vizuri. Your Swahili is really good. Hakuna matata.
That's as far as I go.
And that's all we have.
Yeah, pretty good.
Hakuna matata, I think most everybody knows as well.
Oh yeah,
absolutely, sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
So how are you doing, Mika? Thank you very much for sharing a little bit of your time with us. I think we are trying to build the same thing all together, the same word for everybody. And I've been following your work for about a year and a half. You know, when everything happened here in Europe, I live in Italy. Okay, so I'm sorry, let me introduce ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
My name is Marcelo Vilaça, and this up here is Davidson Detman. We are both Brazilians. I live in Italy. Davidson lives in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. And so all these things started happening here in Europe last year. And I started to get very curious about things. Because, you know, we just have to do the everyday life. You know, go to work, have fun, take care of family, take care of friends, all those things. But that started to open my mind to new things, to understand what was going on. And by understanding what was going on, I started to search for perspectives. And I realized that at some point during my researches, I realized how important the African continent is for our last century and for our next century. And
right?
Exactly, and this is one thing that we had recently a chat with a great friend of ours in Brazil, who is a commander, a Navy commander, and we mentioned this to him. We actually believe that the big transformation will come from African youth, not from Latin American. Well, at least first from Africa.
Yes, it will start over there.
And when I discovered, when I discovered about Professor Lumumba, then I started searching more material about Professor Lumumba, and then I discovered your channel, and I really appreciated to see young people, because I believe you're much younger than me and Davidson. To see young people.
What are you guys? I'd love to know how old are you?
We are on our 40s.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah.
So seeing the young people doing a great job, like you are doing, like others are doing, it inspired us. It also inspired us to start this channel, to start whatever we could do. We are people that we have a little bit of knowledge, not too much, but we try to bring this. So I already talked too much. I talk too much, I'm sorry. I would like to understand from you. That's the first question I asked every guest we have. What are your expectations on this conversation?
Wow. What I expect is as well to learn, because, you know, if you stop learning, you stop growing. And I'll tell you, one of the reasons why I accepted to have this conversation is because every time when I have an opportunity to talk to non-African descendants, I see it as a good opportunity for me to shed a little bit of light of what I know as an African to non-Africans. So, you know, for me, I don't really care about the numbers. I don't really care who is that, but anytime when I have this opportunity to share what I know with other people, I take that opportunity with everything I have in my heart. So what I expect is, you know, to just have a nice conversation. I can get to learn from you guys, and you guys as well can get to learn from me. And hopefully at the end of the day, we'll be able to shed some light to some of your audience who will be watching this. And hopefully we'll get a time as well to upload this in our channel, at least to share, to shed some light to our audience as well.
Yeah, that's exactly what we do. So first of all, when I wrote you, I think I explained that we are not reporters, we are not the press, we are just people doing this because the press does not do for us.
Yeah, yeah.
And so this is not an interview. This is a conversation. So you can be free to ask us anything you want, to have perspective, to bring perspective also for your the title of the video is perspective, like we had the other day with Nina Byzantina, who is a Russian living in Canada. And the idea is to bring these multiple perceptions and perspectives so people can understand that history and society is not a monolith. That I think I could get 10, maybe 20 African experts from Brazil to talk with us in Portuguese, but you are there, you are living there, you see what's going on there. You can share much more information than some Brazilian looking at Africa with a Brazilian eye from Brazil. And I think this is very important. So that's very nice. I think you got the point of the conversation. If I may start just asking a couple of questions, because I am also curious about many things. How could you describe the everyday life in Tanzania? Because if I got it right, you live in Tanzania, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Which, by the way, me and my wife we're planning to visit this year. We end up in Egypt.
That's amazing. That's amazing. But so you did not get to come to Tanzania, right?
No, we end up in Egypt. It was cheaper.
I see. Yeah. All right.
We have to concern about that as well.
Yeah.
So how is the everyday life for you? For example, you go to work, of course. You go. I believe you went to a college or higher education. You plan things. How is the everyday life in Tanzania? Because of course, talking about Africa is a big continent. Even me talking about Brazil, you're gonna hear me talking about Rio de Janeiro, and. But we would like to understand the dynamics, because we see a lot of news, you know, the terrorist groups, which is a very sad thing. How does the everyday life, I don't know, how is it in Tanzania about this? I would like to understand more about this.
If I may, Marcelo.
Sure.
Our focus in our channel is to bring to Brazilians other point of views and other understandings, because our media is very poor in this stuff. So they take a place like Africa that is huge, that is all kind of cultures and histories and languages and all stuff, and they pack it in a small box. Africa, you know. So the Brazilians have a little idea. The Brazilians get very offended when the Americans don't know the Brazilian capital. But they have no idea about the African capitals. You know what I mean? So it's more or less what we would like to do here, to give the Brazilians this perspective of how rich and how huge Africa is. And Brazil is there is a lot of African descendants in Brazil, and they also know very little of their heritage, you know. So that's more or less what we'd like to know about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So to be honest, Tanzania, where I'm living right now, and so many other African countries, because I work with so many people from different African countries, and also had an opportunity to visit some of them. Life is basically like anywhere else. I mean, you've been to Egypt, and if I ask you how is life in Egypt, you'll tell me that, okay, in Egypt, there are different classes of people. There are people who are living really quality good life because they have money and all this stuff, and then you have another middle income group that they're living just like ordinary life, but they have good life. And also you have a lower income people who maybe perhaps per day they might have like 2 meals a day, you know, some of them to a little bit too extreme, 1 meal a day. You might tell me like that, you know, about Egypt. Even I believe even in Brazil, even when you go to countries like US as well, you'll find even all these so-called developed countries, you'll find all these 3 different groups of people. And that's how it is in Tanzania as well. Like you'll go some places where people, they have a lot of money. Most of them are leaders and business people, right? They always have a lot of money. You can imagine what is really going on, you know, behind the scene, why they have money. And that's the easiest way of making money in Africa. Just become a leader and you'll make money. And also you'll find people that are living in the middle income, people like me that, you know, I'm living just my ordinary life. You know, I have meal to eat every single day and all that kind of stuff. And you find the last group that most of them, but here's the funny thing. Most of these people, we imagine they're living in the village, rural areas, but the way that we define better lives and low quality of lives, it's very different from urban areas. Because in rural areas, they might not have paper money, but these people, they do agriculture. They actually have food. They do like livestock. They have animals. They take care of them, and they always have something to eat. But they just live kind of life. It's kind of like old times. They don't really have paper money, but they have resources. So they live by that. Exactly. So most of medias or NGOs, when they come to Africa, they actually go to rural areas to take pictures of all these different, you know, traditions and culture and customs in Africa. Because some of the traditions here in Africa, some of them, they don't wear shoes. Not because they cannot have shoes, but because that is the tradition. It's their tradition. That's how they live. Some of them, they eat raw meat. They don't even cook meat. They eat raw meat and they eat blood. For example, there's this one tribe called Maasai. They eat blood. That is the culture here in Tanzania, and that's one tribe. But when they come, they film that. Exactly, yeah. But when they come, they film that and they show that, oh, this is how people live here in Tanzania. They only show that one side of the coin. But the matter of fact, when you come here and you go in the rural areas, you find people, actually, they're very rich, not with money, but with resources. You find people owning like 100 cows, right? So you find these old men having like 100 acres of land, right? Which if you translate it into money, it's a whole lot of money, you know? You find that every single person here in Africa, actually, they're owning their own houses. These houses might be beautiful houses, or they might be just a little like old tradition types of houses, but they have house, they have land, right? They have all these like livestock and everything, right? So that's how life it is in Africa. And the more I go to village, because even where I was born, it's not really a village, but the life is kind of like that. It's not really like the capital. It's not really like the place I'm living right now in the city, but it's somewhere like in the rural areas. But people are just living very decent kind of life. Like I remember my food. We never used to buy food. We always just, my mom, he always just, you know, she always, we always just, you know, did agriculture a little bit outside of the house. So we had vegetables, we had some maize, you know, we have chicken, you know, sometimes we just lay down some chicken and have the meat. That's kind of life we're living and we're satisfied. So that's kind of life a lot of places in Africa people are living. But also I cannot ignore that there's some places that are a little bit extreme, especially in the places where they have a shortage of rain. You know, you'll find out that there's a shortage of food in some of the rural areas. So for that, I cannot also deny that we have a certain group of people who are living really a low quality of life that they cannot afford like 3 meals a day. We have that, but it's not that a lot. You see this research a lot of time. They say, okay, this village people are living under $1 a day. Like they're living below $1 a day. But when you think about it, if you're living in the United States, you will feel really sad. And oh my goodness, these people, they don't even have $1 a day. But these people you're talking about, they have maize, they have cattle, you know, they have their own farm, they're digging their food. So they're actually living a life. But based on Western standard, it kind of seems like they're not really living a life. So that's how it is.
Yeah, that's you made some very interesting points there. About the blood meal, for example. We have some meals made from blood in Brazil, for example, that with the blood of the goat.
Oh,
it's kind of a jelly. It's kind of a jelly made from brain and blood. It's so if you go to England, me neither. If you go to England, for example, they have the black sausage that's basically boiled blood.
Wow.
Here in Italy, they have a saying that from the pig you do not throw anything away.
Wow.
So, I mean, there is I will send you then. There is an Italian girl. She's from Africa. She's an immigrant from Africa. I believe she's an immigrant. I don't know which country, but she does Instagram showing how ridiculous the Western society sounds like. I sent you that.
Yeah.
How ridiculous the Western society sounds like when you put what they say. So she's an African and she pretends to be a Western or an European visiting Africa, but inside Italy. So, for example, she goes to a place where people are eating their sandwich with the hand, sitting on the floor, and she goes like, "Oh, these people, poor people, they don't have plates. They eat with their hands. They are eating on the floor." And so you see this hypocrisy, this kind of hypocrisy that happens when Westerns go to, let's say, poorer countries. And all that to say, look, I asked that not entirely by curiosity, but I think it's important to bring this empathy for the Brazilians, and hopefully you're going to bring the empathy for the Africans, for us Brazilians. And sometimes that's exactly what you say. What the media shows is, you know, the very, very, very poor from a tribe in the middle of the Sahara Desert or whatever.
In the middle of a dry season, probably. Right, so there is no rain, so they are in poor situation because of that fact. Let's go there and spread some misery to the world. Let's say let's show how the Africans are miserable.
Yeah, and we in Brazil, we have misery as well. It's a sad truth, but we do have a lot of misery. And sometimes I hear friends of mine saying, too bad this misery in Africa. I just look at them and say, come on, Jude, look around.
We're Brazilians.
Look around you.
Over here in Brazil, we have a big region of the country, the northeast region, that is a semi-arid region. So they are very sensitive to weather, to climate and rain and this kind of situation. And you were describing these tribes and these regions in Africa, and I was always thinking about the sertanejos in Brazil, and they live the exactly same situation. They don't have money, but when they have the conditions, they have food, they have life, they have their land, they live, they can live. And most of the time, the situations to have this life, it's not achieved because there is an industry, a misery industry. People that makes money, for instance, selling water on trucks to these people and this kind of thing. So it's not exactly their lifestyle that make them miserable, but the forces around them helps them or help, not the good word, but force them to this situation. If they had the conditions to just live their lives like they live for 300 years, you have food and a life to live.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I have my backup streaming. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Okay, so one thing that I think it's very important for us to understand, how is it this inter-country, inter-African countries relation? Because I mean, countries in Africa, they are generally smaller, and they were divided, we know, by the colonial powers and all that. But I see, for example, that you are in Tanzania, you are just next to Mozambique, for example, which is a different language, but you're probably going to have some overlap of Swahili language or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. For example, when you talk about, we have these 4 different sides of Africa. Basically, it's kind of like 5 by 4. You have, can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Yes.
Oh yeah. You have east, west, south, north, and central. But central is a very small part. So when you're talking about east side of Africa, we have an organization. Talk about right now we have like East African community passport. That means I can go to Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, Congo, and right now I think South Sudan.
It's already a reality. It's happening already.
Absolutely, yeah, it's happening. And some of these countries are speaking, Swahili as well. For example, Kenya, even Rwanda, a little bit, Burundi, Congo, they also speak Swahili. If you go southern part of Africa, you can go to Mozambique. But if you go to those borders between, let's say, Tanzania and one country down there, you'll find people actually speak the same language, even the same people, because most of us were actually, before all these countries, we had kingdoms, right? So colonizers just divided a country based on their own interest. Divide and conquer, and that's what they did. But what can happen is to bring our people together, first of all, to change the software of our minds, not believing that I'm Tanzanian, you're Kenyan, but before that, believing that, hey, I'm African. And when you talk about Africa, not only 54 countries inside the map of Africa, but here in Swahili Nation, we always say we have 56 countries. We have 56 children, 54 countries inside the inside the continent, and also that one is African descendants all across the world, right? So we always say that Africa is not about the place, but it's about people, and people are all over the world. They represent Africa, right? So that interaction between one country and another one, when you look at the culture, when you look at the traditions, when you look at the customs, the language, sometimes even the food, basically the entire continent, you know, we share some food in similar, we kind of have different names, but we have, it's basically the same ingredients, and we eat the same food. So I think this is what we are trying to remind our people, because not everybody knows that, right? So we play our part reminding our people that, hey, this is Africa, you know, and that's why sometimes, you know, when you go outside of Africa, you find people generalize African, like addressing Africa as a single country, which in one side it's good, but also on another side it's bad as well, because they do that because of ignorance. They don't really know countries in Africa and all that stuff. The good side is that, okay, it's good that you guys see us as one people, because that's the reality. We are one people, right? So that is good, but also get some knowledge to understand that these one people, they have different culture, they have different languages, they come from different backgrounds, they're colonized with different people, so they might be speaking different languages, but we are actually one people who were raised in different kind of families out there.
Yeah, that's a point. For example, when I say that when I talk about Brazil, I talk about Rio de Janeiro, is that Brazil is a huge country. So I mostly don't know the biggest part of it. And even the part that I know very little or more or less, it's very different. You know, we are one people. We speak the same language. We have 90% the same culture. But you're going to have some very, very slightly big differences between, you know, South and North. I believe there you're going to have difference between East, West, the North, who is more Arabic, for example. I don't know, and even the South. And but in the same way that you say that, I think it's important, you know, that you perceive as a one nation, for example. It's also important for the people outside to understand that there are several nations, and sometimes the nations overlap. Yeah, because of their culture and everything. Absolutely. And that's a very very interesting point to ask about. For example, I know that you are in East Africa, and we had recent events on Western Africa with all the coup d'etats and everything that happened in Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, Congo. No, yeah, Gabon, exactly. Yeah. How do the people on East Africa see these events, and how is it moving in your everyday life? Is this changing anything for you? Is this moving your I don't know, your economy in some different direction?
Does it mean something to the African continent? What is happening there? It's a kind of a flag or something like this?
Yeah, actually, it means a lot to Africa, because most of Africans are happy with what is going on in the continent like that. Like, most of Africans are actually happy that is happening, because, you know, one of the biggest problem in Africa is leadership. Right, the missing of leadership is one of the biggest problem in Africa, and a lot of people are tired about that, you know. So what is happening? I'm sorry, just for a second, I'm sharing this. Sure. Because I did not know that you guys are actually live, so I just saw the link and I'm trying to share.
Marcel. Yeah, it's okay. It actually, something very bad happened here. The live stream dropped and restarted, and I think it broke in half. But I'm gonna fix it later on the. But we have a new live stream, and it looks like it's going. I have a backup.
We sorry about that, because we are not professionals at all. So,
and the operation
story.
And the operation here is 100% free. So I use open source software. Everything's from my computer.
No worries at all. No worries. You know, so I was saying that a lot of Africans are actually happy with what is happening. The reason is because, you know, Africa, it has been through a lot of traumas for so long, right? Starting with, slavery, and then going to colonialism, and now neocolonialism. But the one thing that it hurts Africa the most is the leadership, because it feels like this, what Africans have been going throughout the years, it feels like we are still not getting the true leadership that can actually stand there for Africans and defend them and actually find a last-long solution, instead of having all this temporary solution for a permanent problem, right? You can't really see a solution if you work like that. So Africans are really happy when they see this, coup d'etat happening, across the side of West Africa. And because these guys, they're basically saying like, you know what, we are tired of, protecting you, who is basically working for the Westerners. So we're just going to take you down, and we want to lead the country. Remember, these are soldiers who have been protecting these leaders for a long time. These are soldiers who are working for the people for a long time, protecting the countries, but they don't see anything happening. And they know the solution to lead the country. For example, you can take an example of what is happening in Niger. Niger, that coup d'etat leader, just today, update came that he actually had to cancel one of the contracts that it was made in 2015, like taking Niger people and then bringing them to Europe as an immigrant. And a lot of people, a lot of them, they were being used as, slave, in those countries, right? So he canceled that, and it was like, our people are not going to come there anymore. And there's a critics coming in that, why are you doing that? Imagine somebody is doing that, is making that decision, and someone is coming to criticize. Why are you doing that? Why should we let our people go to Europe, go to those sides? And we know what happened to them there. We know that they're being killed. We know how they're being treated. They're safe here in Africa than outside of Africa. So when you see these leaders taking over the charge and taking leadership in their countries, it's actually a good sign, because they're actually making impact for their people, and they're working for their people. And that's the only thing that Africans want. If we'll have leaders who will work for our people, then, this continent, how rich it is, man. Like, this continent is rich, and the potential in this continent is very huge, especially with the younger generation you said at the beginning. But we just need the working system for our people, so that we may break out of this shock of humiliation that we go through as Africans. And that's why you find young people like me who are not working for the government, not working for anyone, but we just started our own initiative because we believe in the power of transformation, and we don't wait for the leaders to do that, but we want to bring that change to our community, and we believe we can. So yeah, for me, I support because I think that is what Africa needs, at the moment.
Yeah, that's actually not only Africa that needs it. I would say Latin America needs this as well.
we hope you follow your example.
Yeah,
I mean, we can do. We could do a easier transition.
Yeah,
but it's very hard to see what people. I mean, I totally understand what brings them to the point of such a strong break of the system.
Yeah. How is it? How is it there in Brazil, when you talk about corruption and the leadership there? How is it?
You say it.
Well, Brazil is I think what happened in Brazil, in South America, in Latin America, in general way, is the leaders here. They are more skilled in keep the people in the limit of tolerance.
Mm-hmm.
In Africa, maybe Africa is a more complex continent. I don't know. Maybe it is that or not. I am not sure. But what I see is the Brazilian people. They have just enough to don't break up.
Yeah.
They are skilled on it. So the Brazilians keep happy with the little food they have, the soccer games they see on TV, and the beer they drink in the weekend. And the real problems are kind of ignorated. And I hear Brazilians complaining about the politicians. They are incompetent. The police is incompetent. But actually, I think they are very competent. They are extremely competent. The point is, their objectives are not making our people happy and wealth. And that's the feeling I have. So what Brazilians miss now is what is happening in Africa. It's why Marcelo said we strongly believe that the change will come from Africa, because you are in the breaking point already. You know, you're in the African people got enough of it. So maybe if we see things happening in Africa, then the Brazilians and the rest of the world south, like they say, right, think about it and say, well, if they can, why we can't? It's more or less, I understand it.
As Davidson said, the Brazilian politician is very skilled to keep people on the edge.
Exactly.
You know, it's a very small line between what lives there, what happens there, and a breakout and something completely disruptive. So, for example, of course, by talking about Brazil, I'm being unfair to, for example, Venezuela, which had a very strong intervention with Chavez and then Maduro, and is suffering because of this. And we're talking about the last decades, because, of course, in the 60s, and that was a point that got me very curious. In the 60s, we had all the what's it called, the coup d'états in Brazil, in Latin America. But people complain about our coup d'états, with our military coup d'états. But in Africa, it was a massacre. The leaders got all murdered. You know, it was completely disaster for the African countries. Yeah. And what we had there, it was not nice. It was a dictatorship from the military all over the countries. But it was not to the point, and well, some places in Latin America also, they killed Salvador Allende, for example, who was a good leader, who was a great leader there, among others. But
Chile,
in Brazil,
it was very violent too.
Oh, sorry?
In Chile, it was very violent.
Yes. But in Brazil, it was, it was heavy, but more or less.
If you put in this scale, nothing in South America was comparable or in the same level what happened in Africa. What are happening in Africa in the last 400 years. South America was tough stuff. Was not South American history is not as peaceful as we learn in school. There was civil wars, there was massacres. Our natives suffered quite a lot. There was 5 million Indians in Brazil when the Portuguese arrived, and now they are scattered, they are few, and of course there was awful stuff. But I doubt it even little closer. It's far away from what happened in Africa. So it's more or less why I think the Africans are already in the limit, and the South America is in this torpor, you know.
Yeah.
And, another point is that, for example, we had the colonization, the colonial era of Brazil ended in 1822. So, you know, for us, for the last generations, I would say it's something very far away, and people sometimes forget. Well, I hear, for example, with this thing happening in Ukraine, I hear people saying, "Oh, this is absurd to see a country invading other country in 2022." What's absurd? 20, 30 years ago, there were colonies all over Africa. Angola, for example, that's a country that is a brother country to us, which is also Portuguese speaking. It was reconstructed after the Civil War in the 2000s. Many Brazilian companies were working in the reconstruction of Angola, for example. And there are colonies now, today. If you go, for example, in the north of Brazil, you have French Guiana, which France says, well, it's our territory, but it's a colony. They call it extra continental whatever, but it's a colony. It's a colony happening today in South America, and
it's a very important point, I believe, because a few months ago we were seeing the Europeans horrified because people like us, like they said, are dying. They are people like us. They are not some foreigners in an exotic country. They are people like us. They are white. They are blue. They have blue eyes. They are blonde. They are like us. The Europeans were saying that this in their TV. So it's like it say a lot about who they understand to be really people, right? Their compassion are very restricted. You know, they don't see people that doesn't have that looking like as equals, as worthy of compassion and peace and safety. They are exotic people, and like we said in with Nina. They like Churchill said, they breed like habits, so they breed like rabbits, so it's their fault.
Yeah, it's and that's a perception that they have also about Latins and
exactly.
Chinese and Russians, who are also white people with blue eyes. So it's very interesting how the mind work in this way. I have very hard time to understand it. But, you know, I've been seeing some interesting political movements outside, apart the military movements on taking down governments. I'm seeing some very interesting movements in Africa, and I would like to ask you a little bit about how you see these people. For example, you had in Tanzania John Magufuli. You have Paul Kagame in Rwanda. You have Julius Malema in South Africa, this one I am a bit curious about. But I'm very curious about John Magufuli. How was him perceived by the people? How was his work? How do you believe was his work?
Yeah. First of all, I just want to update that I have like 10 minutes left. So, okay. Yeah. Okay. About John Pombe Magufuli, that's one of my favorite leaders of Africa. And even what I do, I was highly inspired by him because I started to do during his regime. All right. I had a vision for this for more than 10 years, but I did not start doing like this online. But when he came, I think he stirred up something inside of me, and I started to do it. And simply because of his conviction and his dedication to Africa. Right, he's kind of guy that he came at the time that Tanzania was really in a bad place economically and mostly mentally, because we as Tanzanians did not really believe in ourselves. Because for years we've been just receiving loans and aids, and for years we've been made to believe that we are a poor country. We're made to believe that we cannot really do anything without them. We're made to believe that we cannot really make it out. So a lot of Tanzanians started to leave outside of the country and go to find for a better opportunity in other countries. But when Magufuli came, what he did is he canceled all the foreign trips from government officials, himself and everybody that is working for government. He said, you know what, in those countries we have ambassadors, they will represent us. We pay them money to do that. So we're not going to go anywhere. Basically, he was creating something in our mind that, you know what, opportunities are here and this is home and we must build our country instead of spending a lot of money outside there. Because one trip of a leader, if one president just leave today Tanzania going to the United States, the money that is being spent there, it could be even more than $100,000 in one trip. Yep. It could be, it's more than that, because all these leaders will go in first class, all these leaders will live in the 5-star hotels, all these leaders will have some pocket money to spend there, all these leaders, if they stay there for 1 month, man, all that money is the tax from the people, this common one, like everybody else are giving. So the country, when he stopped there, every single month the country was giving the feedback of how much this tax revenue Tanzania organization has collected money every single month. It was a lot of money. So this guy was able to reinstate the airline, industry here in Tanzania Airline. He was able to start all this project of building the railway system, the standard gauge railway system. He was able to build the roads throughout the countries. He was able to build airports in every single city in the country. He was able to start to continue with the water dam project that is going to produce a lot of electricity to the entire country of Tanzania. He was able to build some universities. He was able to cut down all the fees from the universities and schools. People that go and start there for free. The country moved from lower per capita income. It went all the way to the middle within just 5 years, and the vision was for 10, 15 to 20 years. And so many things that he did because he just wanted to cut down some budget, government budget that they were spending a lot of money most of the times, right? So he showed the excellence and he showed the willingness to change the system. And within 5 years to 6 years, Tanzanians now believe that, oh, Tanzania is rich. Oh, we were able to do this and that by ourselves. Oh, look at how government went. In 6 years, electricity, it was always here available. They did not cut electricity for 6 years because of that guy. Wow. Right now, he's not here. Electricity every single day. Every single day. If morning is here, night is not. Right now, it's here because in the morning, it was not here the whole day. So imagine, if that is the situation of your country, do you think you're going to have progress? Do you think you're going to have development? Because electricity is basically a basic needs to our people. So these are just few things that this guy did. And a lot of people did not know about it, but his legacy lives after he dies because everybody right now talks about him. Everybody remembers him. So I wish to have a little bit, just one more year with that guy. Right?
I heard the term magafulization of Tanzania.
Magulification of Africa.
Magulification of Africa.
Excellent.
Exactly.
Excellent.
This guy, and his nickname was Bulldozer because he was like, if you made mistake once, you are not given a second chance. If you made mistake one as a leader, you're out of the leadership and somebody else will come. We had people in Tanzania that they were being paid salary every single month and they died a long time ago. More than 1,000 and 100,000 of people. And he was able to bring, to cut down all those. So you can imagine, we have money like Africa. Let me tell you this. It's not about money. Money is not a problem in Africa. We have money, but that money, it just goes to few people. And those few people, they're collective for themselves and their families, and that's it. That's the problem in Africa. So integrity is the biggest problem in the leadership in Africa.
That's more or less the same in Brazil. I would say it's terrible like this. And you said the other day we were doing a live, and Davidson just got out of energy there. Just got the energy cut. So.
Oh yeah, and it is something that we got for granted for a long time ago, and now we are getting trouble on it.
Yeah, oh, man.
Due to your to the short time that we have, I would like to have one last question. The BRICS and the multipolar war that is blooming. How do you guys see this? How do you see Brazil in this context? I don't imagine. I don't assume that you would point Brazil as a great leader or something like that. I just want to know if you guys have any perception about Brazil in this process, and of course about BRICS as a whole.
So I'll give you two perspectives. I'll give you my personal perspective, and also I'll give you the perspective of other Africans, because I think my personal perspective is a little bit extreme. But most of Africans, I would say, based on the content that I created about BRICS, they seem to be happy about it, because it's kind of like the other option apart from World Bank and IMF. So it's better to have many options on the table, and you can decide to pick and choose. If this one is better for me and it's going to work for me, then I'll go after this. If this one is bad, I'm going to leave it, right? So for so long time, Africa has been kind of like not really being able to do what we want to do, because we have these systems that we must follow, right? Until today, the currency, African currencies, have been printed outside of Africa. So what does that mean? It means that they can control economy. They can just print few, or they can print many. However, to have inflation or deflation, they can do whatever they want anytime. And the only medium for exchange is dollar. So in order for me to go to Kenya, I need to change my currency to dollar. And when I go to Kenya, I need to change to Kenyan shilling. And we use the same shilling. Basically, it's different kind of like value and everything. But I need to do that within the continent. So that system, it works for them, because the more you use dollar, the more money they get, right? So BRICS is kind of like giving another option, and some of Africans are actually excited about it. That, I think this is good to have many options on the table. But my perspective is this: that I think it's good to have many options on the table, but I don't think Africa is in that position right now to make those decisions. Because when I'm looking at these BRICS, I see only South Africa right now. Of course, Egypt, Ethiopia, they came along as well. But when you look at the economy of these African countries that are in there, and these countries that are in there, for example, China, India, and Brazil, you cannot really compare, when you look at it. So the dynamics of these organizations, I am afraid that in a long term is not really going to be beneficial, to Africa. So my suggestion when I made this, my opinion about BRICS, this is what I said. I said that, I think it's important for Africa to focus on the unity of Africa and join BRICS as one continent, and not these individual countries. Yeah, because that will have a say, also will have a number. China has number there, more than 1 billion people. Okay, India has number there. Okay, if you have only South Africa, look at the number. Okay, even Brazil as well. Right. So if you join as Africa, then you have a strong say, because whatever that you're going to do, you're going to negotiate. You'll negotiate as a continent and not as individual countries. And unity is power. If we have that, then they know China needs Africa. India needs Africa. I'll say Brazil as well needs Africa. By the way, we have a lot of our brothers and sisters there in Brazil as well. So when I talk about Brazil, I'm like, that's just another African country out there, and when I talk about, so that is my opinion. And when I look at Brazil, this is one of the issues that I have, to be honest. I'll tell you, not only Brazil, but a lot of countries. When you find our people outside of Africa, how they're being treated, it's ridiculous. I lived outside for 9 years. I did not live in Tanzania for like I was also diaspora outside of the continent, and I lived in some other countries. I visited a few countries, and I've seen and I experienced how when you just have this, you know, color, how you'll be treated out there, right? So I always have trouble with that when I think about, you know, when are we gonna be able to, you know, to solve these issues? Maybe we might not be able to solve because, you know, you always have that, you know, kind of issue. But it's, for me, it's kind of like hypocrisy when you have nations like China, when you have nations like that want to have relationship with Africa while our people are being mistreated in their countries. They're not treated well. They're treated like trash, like slaves. And you say that you value Africa. So the idea of saying that these countries, they care about Africa, they value Africa, as Africans, I always advise my people that delete that in your mind. You'll always be mistreated. You'll always be looked down upon. You need to know your value, and you need to focus on developing yourself before running after other relationship. If you know how to do relationship with yourselves, then it will be very easy to cooperate with other countries, because you go with that understanding of who you are and what position you have in the world. And if you respect yourself, then they will respect you as well. But if you don't, they're not going to respect you. So if we cannot unite ourselves and we want to be part of BRICS, each country individual, I think we're losing respect. And I think this dynamic of this relationship is not going to work in a long time. So I think it's going to be just another problem that we'll have in a couple of years from now.
Yeah, it's just going to change from one colonizer to another group of colonizers.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. I mean, when we talk about Latin America, it's not different. Brazil is not an official colony, but it's been colonized, neo-colonized financially. In the same way, well, we can put more or less here or there, but Brazil is a huge country, and even a huge country like Brazil has this problem. So you just have to understand that you have to pick up 5 huge countries with huge economies to actually make an alternative to the colonial powers. Let's call them like that. Go, Davison.
Oh, sorry, Marcel. Let's remember Farinazzo, our friend, also works this kind of channel and stuff. Farinazzo said that Brazil is in a delicate situation now because we are trying to make pace with giants, and we are not making our homework. And these guys are now our friends, but if we don't make our homework, they will not respect us because we don't respect ourselves.
They will just eat us alive.
What you are saying about Africa right now, we can see happening in Brazil too, or we change ourselves and understand our size. And work together, or they will just run over us.
Yeah. So indeed. I think we have reached 1 hour that we have more or less discussed previously. Do you have to go now, right?
Oh yeah. I have to sign up because I will be having another stream as well. From our channel, like in 30 minutes from now. Okay. So I just need to cool down before doing that. But if you have a final question, yeah, I think we can do that.
Okay. We just brushed a little bit through colonialism and neo-colonialism. So how do you believe that Africa is dealing with this decolonization? I think we talked a little bit about the revolutions in the West Africa and the leaders of East Africa, but as a whole, I think that's very important what you say about the African Union. I do believe that a bloc, an economic bloc, is necessary. How do you think? How do you see the what does the African heroes, let's call like this, are doing? Heroes, I mean also people like you, people that are fighting for a better Africa. How do you see this happening inside Africa? How is this blooming inside Africa?
Yeah, it's actually we're getting there. Even though I'm not yet satisfied with the speed and the desire. Because in Africa right now, and I think most part of the world as well, if I ask you, who is the most famous person in Brazil?
Neymar.
Probably.
See? So even if you ask me in Tanzania, I'll tell you someone entertainer, like maybe musician. In Brazil is like, like footballer. And in so many other countries, if you go to the US, you find out like musician and all that stuff. But when you trace back 60 years ago or 50 years ago, if you say, who is the most famous in your country? Who was the most famous in your country? Or my country? You'll find out some leaders. I'll tell you maybe Julius Kambarage Nyerere. So you see that shift. That tells you where we are as a world, right? Those people that used to influence us right now, it moved from most important people, hero who brought about independence and freedom in our countries, to just entertainer. This is where we're going. If you ask a lot of young people who you want to become, they'll tell you, I want to become, a musician. I want to become a soccer player. It's not a bad thing to become like that, but are you going to have like 60 million people in your country, all of them soccer player or musicians? How are you going to develop the country? You don't see that, right? So what I'm trying to say is, the education about decolonization of the mind, I think it needs to go all the way down to the grassroots. Africans should start learning about their history, the history before colonialism. That hey, before you guys, you were slaves. You used to be kings and queens. You guys, you actually had life going on. You guys, you were civilized. You can look at Egypt. 1,000 years ago, you will see that was one of the strongest superpower in the whole world, right? What was happening there, it actually changed the course of the entire world. If you go to Ethiopia, I'll tell you the same thing. It changed the entire course of the whole world. If you go to Mali, if you go to Congo Kingdom, if you go to Angola Kingdom, all these different kingdoms, they did massive things in shaping the history and the cause of science that we have today in this world. If Africans know that, then they'll realize that we are not just people that used to be taken advantage of, but we once used to be, this is our history. This is how our people were working. I started to watch this one documentary by JFK, and I admire how Americans and how other countries, Europeans, how they try to share the history of their leaders, what they did to their countries as much as they can. You'll find so many different documentaries talking about their leaders. That means people are learning about their country. People are becoming aware of what is going on in their countries. And when people, they know their history, then people, they can actually predict their future. They can do something about their tomorrow, that, okay, this is us. But, most of our people, we don't know that. When we were colonized here, colonizers it was illegal for Africans to learn about African history. Even in the Bahamas, majority, more than 90% of people there are African descendants. But when they were colonized by British, it was illegal for them to learn about Africa's history. That is Caribbean. A lot of countries there, and our people, it was illegal. Why? Because they did not want our people to know who they used to be before they were colonized by them. So if we go back there and we learn, then we realize that, this colonialism was just a little piece of shit here at the middle. That it had it just disturbed our history a little bit, but it doesn't have any effect. If we go back to our history to know who we are, then we know that the change can come and we can bring that change.
Yeah, that's true, brother. And that's when I say this, I say because coming to know Professor Lumumba, for example, who's fantastic. I saw you went to visit him, magnificent video, who is a fantastic person with fantastic ideas. I actually put on our channel slices from his videos because I think it's necessary. I do not even monetize those videos because I just need people. I just want people to see that, and I am very cautious in perfectly translate because I use machine translation for subtitles. Then I have to line by line search what he's talking about when he say people like Nyerere or many other, even Angolan and Mozambican, who is very important for us that we speak Portuguese. We can study them further. So I search to make the perfect name so people that watch that know the exactly name, because sometimes you hear, but if you don't know, it's a name. It's sometimes can be very difficult to understand. So I search for them. I am very cautious on that. And we should study better these African leaders in South America. We should study better our leaders in South America to understand where we came from as well. South America has slightly different, but yeah, the colonization period was tragic for everybody, more or less. Yeah, and go ahead.
Sorry. Yes, the idea of erasing our past, to absorb the foreigner past and to know more about their culture than from our culture. It's the same formula. It's the same method.
Yeah. Just so you know, we had an African kingdom in Brazil during the slavery time. That was a king in Africa that was enslaved. His name was Gangazumba.
Oh,
I believe from Nigeria.
Wow!
If I'm not mistaken.
I'm gonna need to study about that.
Yeah. I will send you a link of a video, but it's a guy from Mozambique, so the video is in Portuguese. He has a channel called Eu Afro. It's very nice channel as well. And yeah, I think we got more or less everything covered. Well, there's a lot of things to cover, maybe in another opportunity, but you have another stream to do, and you need to relax a little bit.
We are very glad, man. We are really very glad. It was amazing. Really good.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much. I hope we have. I would like to apologize for mistakes that happened here, and if we commit any gaffe or some mistakes that we committed.
No, not at all. Not at all. You know, the thing is, this conversation, we need to have this conversation. We need to stop being afraid of being offended or offend other people, because we don't really know about ourselves, about each other as well. When we have this conversation, we get a time to learn about each other and listen to one another. And this is the beginning of change. So I appreciate what you guys are doing, and I think it's really important what you're doing. And anytime when we get some another time to have this conversation, I would love to get back and to have this conversation. I think it's very important to our audience as well.
Yeah, sure. We are available if you want to invite us anytime to a conversation. Just drop a message. I have Paul, by the way. Big regards to Paul, who have been listening to me asking 1,000 questions to make this as good as possible. Thank you very much for being with us. Hope we'll have another opportunities in the future. I know you're a very busy man, but hopefully we're gonna have some small time every now and then to keep this conversation going. This is very important, I believe, as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It was a big honor.
And keep the great work. It was a big honor.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. God bless.
God bless you. Bye.